Celebrating Kansas Voices. The Shawnee Indian Mission. During the 1820s and 1830s, the Shawnee Native Americans and many other eastern tribes were moved westward to what is now the state of Kansas. The Shawnees received a parcel of land that was approximately 1.6 million acres in this move. The Shawnee Indian Mission was started by Reverend Thomas Johnson in October 1839 near a branch of the Santa Fe Trail. They went through a portion of the land that was given to the Shawnee. He started the school after proposing the idea to the Missionary Society that a central school would best serve more tribes. The Reverend was married to Sarah Davis, who helped him run the mission. The school was open to several tribes, including the Kaw, Munsee, Delaware, Ottawa, Chippewa, Osage, Cherokee, Peoria, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Omaha, and Wyandot. Some of the subjects that were taught included basic academics, agriculture, manual arts, and also domestic skills for the female students. These classes were given 5 days of the week for 6 hours a day. On Saturday, classes only met for 3 hours. The boys worked either on the farm or in the shop, usually for about 5 hours a day. The girls' lessons included learning how to sew, wash, and cook. The day-to-day schedule for everyone was to wake up at 4 a.m. each morning and be in bed by 8 p.m. At the mission's peak, there were about 200 Indian boys and girls ranging between the ages of 5 and 23 in attendance. The school covered more than 2,000 acres and had 16 buildings. In 1854, the same year Kansas became an official part of the United States, the Shawnee Indian Mission stopped its manual training classes. At this time, Andrew Reeder was the territorial governor of Kansas. His offices were at the mission. Several years later, in 1858, Reverend Thomas Johnson gave control of the school to his eldest son, Alexander. The school stayed open until 1862. Reverend Thomas Johnson died on January 2, 1865. He was murdered in his Missouri home. It's believed that his killers were Southern sympathizers who were frustrated that Johnson had sworn an oath to the Union at the beginning of the Civil War. In doing this, he had gone back on his previous pro-slavery ties. 3 blocks from the Indian Mission, Johnson is buried at the Shawnee Methodist Mission Cemetery with other members of his family. You can see the cemetery as you drive down Shawnee Mission Parkway. Today, there are 3 of the original buildings that have been partially restored. The buildings that remain are the West Building, which was built in 1839 and acted as classrooms and housing for teachers and superintendents. The East Building, which was built between 1840 and 1841. It acted as a chapel, classrooms, and housing for teachers. There was also an area in the attic for the Indian boys to sleep. Finally, the North Building, which is the newest of the 3, built in 1845. It was a school and dorms for the Indian girls. Along with the 3 main buildings, the site has a few other structures that have been refurbished. There's a small shelter for animals, along with an enclosure to let them roam around in. In between the North Building and the shelter, there's a little work shed. The Shawnee Indian Mission was designated as a registered National Historic Landmark in 1968. Today, the Shawnee Indian Mission is open May through October from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Wednesday to Saturday. Every year, the Shawnee Indian Mission hosts a fall festival, which demonstrates aspects of the time period. At the festival, the buildings are open and you can walk around and see how they were set up for classes. The animal shelter and shed are functioning and a forge is set up, showing how smithing was done. There's also a teepee set up that you can go inside and talk to a descendant of the tribe to learn about their culture and how the Shawnee Native Americans lived before the mission. Vendors are set up around the buildings, selling items relative to the time period, whether they're toys, clothing, arrowheads, or other various pieces of art.